Questions, comments? Harry Snuff, Chair, UNC Board of Governors.
Wendy Murphy, Chair of Personnel Team.
Jim Holmes, Chair of Public.
David Powers, Chair of University Governors.
Kelly Moon, Vice Chair.
Randy Ramsey, Vice Chair of the Board.
Darrell Allison, Board of Governors. Steve Small.
On behalf of the board and university leadership, I want to let you know that we value input and opinions of the university community and general public, especially citizens who are willing to come and gather here to discuss related matters relative to the university. We look forward to these public comment sessions as an opportunity to hear from you. The public comment session is a chance for the board and the president to hear directly from you. Just a quick word about the format. You will notice right away that we will be in complete listening mode when you are commenting. Board members will not be engaging in conversation with speakers or offering comments in response. With that said, we're going to listen to what you have to say. This is a common format and approach to public comment sessions, and it ensures that speakers can be heard. Each speaker will be allocated a maximum of 3 minutes, and a timer can be viewed on the board. We will be following up on the comments we hear with the help of university staff. Individuals who did not register as speakers or who wish to provide their views in writing may submit written information to the following email: public@bog.northcarolina.edu. As a reminder, the success of our public comment sessions depends on the respectful engagement of everyone involved. We ask that everyone in attendance observe the board's expectation of decorum, and that all attending today's public comment session remain respectful of fellow attendees and the board. Those attending as an official meeting may not engage in conduct that interferes with the rights of others to observe and listen to the proceedings. Any individual who disrupts the public comment session will be asked to leave and may be subject to arrest. At the conclusion of the public comment session, all guests who do not wish to attend the 9 a.m. board meeting will be directed to exit through the building's front doors. Any guests that do wish to attend our 9 a.m. board meeting will remain seated and will receive priority admission once the number of seats have been made available. Thank you all for attending, and let's hear from our first registered speaker, Alex Davis.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for giving me this chance to speak. For, as an undergraduate student, the chances I have to address administration is extremely limited. Harry Smith, you said in an interview last month that you have the support of the silent majority. You are right, Mr. Smith, that the majority is indeed silent, but that is because they fear for their jobs, their scholarships, and their wages. That is why. In the words of essayist James Baldwin, it is a silence not only phenomenal, but cultivated, and cultivated by this board. Thus, this board functions on a total lack of accountability to its constituents, which brings me to the Free Speech Act. The Free Speech Act ensures a speaker's right to address a crowd without interruption under penalty of expulsion for whoever interrupts. The implication here is that the interrupter has a chance to speak at another time. So I am asking this board, when is that time? When may students, faculty, and workers address the administration with their criticism? Is it when we hold a peaceful vigil for then the cops seize our property and force us off? Is it when students make signs to educate passersby about the history of this institution, for at that time the police destroy the signs? Is the only time we have to address this board for 3 minutes on a workday during summer, once a year? I don't think that there's any reason why we couldn't have more time. May we discuss the closing of the Civil Rights Center, the new curriculum, the aggressive defunding of the arts, the blatant abuse of public funds by Vice Chancellor Derek Kemp this year. Civil disobedience was central to the founding of this country. It helped give us democracy, universal suffrage, and civil rights, and the Free Speech Act demonstrates that this board is hostile not only to civil disobedience, but public debate in general. Many of you align yourselves with Art Pope and his think tank, the John Locke Foundation, so I'm sure you are all intimately aware of the labor theory of property by John Locke, which says in brief that whoever works the land owns it. John Locke would say that we, the students, the workers, and faculty of this university are the university, and we own the university. This board and Harry Smith and Art Pope are not the university. We are the university, and I implore you with great gravity to consider from where your mandate comes. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Aubrey Lauersdorf.
Hello, my name is Aubrey Lauersdorf. I am a graduate student at UNC Chapel Hill, as well as an instructor and teaching assistant in the Department of History. I'm also a member of UE 150, the North Carolina Public Service Workers Union, and especially am a member of the Workers Union at UNC, which is the chapter at UNC Chapel Hill. If you haven't heard of UE 150, it represents public service workers across the state of North Carolina, state workers and municipal workers as well. And so, speaking as an individual member of this union, I want to say first that I do commend the General Assembly for implementing what will effectively be a $15 per hour minimum wage for full-time state employees. And for some workers in my workplace, this means that they'll be taking home as much as a few $1,000s more every year. And for some workers I've spoken to, this raise could even make the difference of whether they need to also hold a part-time job on top of their full-time job that they already have for the state of North Carolina. And of course, this will allow them to spend more time with their families, on education or other pursuits. It'll also ensure that they're able to pay their bills. However, UNC administrators have been very opaque with employees about when they are actually going to implement this raise, only telling us that they are awaiting implementation instructions and never actually telling us that the budget had been set to take effect July 1st, 2018. So I would urge all members of the Board of Governors to encourage UNC administrators to be clear with employees about what the timeline is for implementing this raise, and also encourage UNC to implement this raise for its workers as soon as possible. Workers should not have to wait any longer for the money that the General Assembly has promised them. And I am also aware that the General Assembly allocated $20 million in SHRA, and EHRA salary increases across the UNC system. As a union, UE 150 always advocates for raises to be allocated in ways that help the lowest paid workers the most. This is where these raises will really have the greatest impact. So if raises are going to be allocated across the board to SHRA and EHRA workers, I urge the Board of Governors to consider implementing flat rate raises compared to percentage raises. As you may know, percentage raises give more money to those workers who are already making more, whereas flat rate raises give lower wage workers who need these raises much more a bigger piece of the pie, so that all workers get their fair share. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Nora Dennis, and I'm a physician and an assistant professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at that other university in Durham. I'm a Tar Heel, born of two Tar Heels, however, and I attended UNC as a Moorhead Scholar, class of 2001, and received my master's in public health from the Gilling School. I am here to say simply that Silent Sam's time here is finished. My grandfather, John Eric Wilson, was a professor emeritus of biochemistry here at UNC. When he moved from Cornell to UNC in 1951, he and my grandmother, Marion, were shocked at the way that older black people dropped their gaze and shuffled backward when approaching white people in the street. Silent Sam would have been proud that the fire of violence and genocide from which he was wrought still burned so fierce. After all, did not Julian Carr proudly tell the tale of horsewhipping a Negro wench because she publicly spoke ill of a white woman at the unveiling of Silent Sam? The statue celebrates black fear. When my father was called a nigger lover as a little boy attending Carborough Elementary, Silent Sam must have smiled upon that as well. He was placed to remind North Carolinians, white North Carolinians, of their supposedly shared heritage and opinion on the war to protect slavery. Never mind that North Carolina was far from eager to join the Confederacy, that draft dodging, desertion, and tax evasion were common, and that many in our state were ambivalent to or opposed to the war. In the world order proposed during the retelling of Southern history represented by Silent Sam, apparently this statue represents a shared white heritage. My mother and father, black and white, met and married as undergraduates in the 1960s on UNC's campus. The Silent Sam no doubt shuddered, and her grades were better than his, too. Silent Sam was beginning not to belong. When I chose UNC over Harvard and Stanford, it was because I believed in Charles Kuralt's beautiful statement that it was a university of the people, and because I love my state and my community. The continued presence of a prominent statue celebrating white supremacy on a campus that purports to be for all of us is an insult. Silent Sam belongs to the campus about as much as a statue of the soldier of the Third Reich. He may have been brave, he may have been a beloved relative, but his cause was not just, so we cannot celebrate his actions. And by the way, my children are directly descended from a Confederate soldier, and my brother-in-law is a great-great-grandson of Stonewall Jackson. We don't celebrate their actions. In a pluralistic, multiracial, and intelligent place where truth matters and facts still exist, there is no home for Silent Sam. My family won't be donating further until Silent Sam is removed. Having read the NC General Statute, Chapter 100, I would say that Silent Sam needs to be moved for reconfiguration of the open space of the quad near Franklin Street, given the hubbub that has erupted in his presence. I call on the Board of Governors to petition the North Carolina Historical Commission to remove the statue. We deserve better. Thank you.
Hannah Shelton.
Hello, my name is Hannah Shellum. I'm an NC resident and a UNC grad student. I'm talking about Silent Sam today. There's more than 6 of us protesting. Today I want to say that Silent Sam is a lightning rod for racist and homophobic action because its foundation in white supremacy happily supports these values. You've heard from people here today and before today at other meetings about violence experienced at that statue. I myself was threatened with death there by homophobic God's Army people who told me they were told that Silent Sam was the space to share their message of violence and homophobic, death threats. Silent Sam is violence personified, and its continued existence after 50 years of protest after the death of Martin Luther King Jr. certainly speaks to a university that values profits from a campus that unabashedly promotes white supremacy by being purposefully inactive. Money rather than morals rather defines this whole unwillingness to remove this racist statue. If you care about students rather than profits, if you are people rather than just business machines, you'll take it down. And as always, I want us all to remember that this is an issue of Black lives, so Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Good morning. I'd like to introduce myself. and provide background for my comments about Silent Sam. My name is Candace Midget. In 2015, I was appointed Director of Orange County Historical Museum, or OCHM, located in Hillsborough. The museum occupies a 1935 town-owned building in the historic district named the Confederate Memorial Public Library. The museum moved into the building vacated by the library in 1982, and the name was changed to Confederate Memorial. In April 2015, I put a motion before OCHM's board to submit a proposal to our town board asking that lettering Confederate Memorial be removed from the building. My charge to the board at that time was to accept this chance to be on the right side of history by approving the proposal. OCHM's board accepted the challenge, unanimously approving the proposal and submitted it to the town. It was placed on the town's June 2015 meeting agenda, and after a series of meetings with the town and Historic District Commission, approval was granted, allowing the town to remove lettering from the building and store it at Town Hall. The initial proposal and subsequent hearings set off a torrent of outrage from neo-Confederates, heritage groups, alt-right and white supremacist groups in local counties, which then spread across the state. From the first meeting in June 2015 until January 2016, 4 months after the Historic District Commission's ruling, I was personally targeted for abuse, and on several occasions threats were made against the museum. The intimidation came from many sources, some of which self-identify as heritage groups. I was excoriated across social media platforms, became the target of a telephone campaign to intimidate and terrorize me. I faced angry crowds of protesters before, after, and occasionally during every one of our 5 meetings with town officials. Hillsborough Police Department personnel received information describing credible threats targeting 2 museum events in July 2015 and August 2015, and in each case, officers were placed inside the museum to protect staff and visitors. I believe these experiences may in some small way parallel the tensions surrounding Silent Sam. The politics, the why, and how the statue was created in its present form and on the site it now occupies are clear. We know that this statue was constructed to act as a memorial to white supremacy on this campus. Many, perhaps most of us, have seen, long distance or close, the practice of poetics of this memorial and the way people have worked within and through UNC to make meaning from this artifact, which has evinced in them passion and opposing feelings about its place on this campus. There's 2 quotes there's one quote I'd like to share. Memorials possess a recalcitrant presentness as long as they are in our visual field. They do not fall silent like speech, nor are they put away like the writing in a book. Memorials speak by their mere existence, endure by virtue of the durability of their composition, and act upon other texts. This is such a strong memorial that I don't think it's possible to recontextualize it in its present form. I think the only chance to rehabilitate the statue is to remove it, place it elsewhere, and recontextualize it. I hope that you all are able to find a way to do that. Thank you.
I'm Mary Phillips, a 1983 PhD graduate from UNC Chapel Hill School of Business in Accounting, and I'm a resident of Chapel Hill. I speak on behalf of the members of the Chapel Hill Carrboro Area Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Delta Sigma Theta is a 105-year-old public service sorority whose first public act was to participate in the Women's Suffrage March in Washington, D.C. in 1913, the only African-American women's group in the march. I'm here to express our concerns about the UNC Confederate monument on the campus at Chapel Hill. To its credit, the university erected a monument on campus recognizing African-American contributions to the building of the university. However, the UNC Confederate monument is a symbol of slavery and racism, erected under the auspices of the North Carolina Division of the United Daughters of the Confederacy and aided by alumni of the university. As such, we call for the removal of UNC's Confederate monument from the campus. African Americans were brought to this country against their will. were enslaved, lived through Jim Crow, and continue to live with racial discrimination, which results in disparities in everything from education to health to economics and equal justice. While the public discussion on the monument centers on paying tribute to the students who served and concerns about the rights of those whose ancestors supported the Confederacy, there seems not to be similar concerns for those who still suffer from the remaining vestiges of slavery and racial discrimination. As descendants of enslaved African Americans, some of whom are direct descendants of slaves from Orange County, and as alumni of UNC Chapel Hill, we want this reminder of slavery and Jim Crow to be removed from the university that calls itself the University of the People. We ask you to move quickly to rid the campus of this racist reminder, which was and still is another attempt to keep African Americans in their place. By taking this action, the university will be closer to being the place it aspires to be. Thank you and good morning.
Good morning. I would like to congratulate the new leadership of the board and welcome you to this opportunity to make a difference in our community. I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Anna Richards. I've been a resident of Chapel Hill for 5 years. I'm a retired senior executive of a major corporation here. I worked 42 years. I could have lived anywhere in America. I moved here from the West Coast. I chose Chapel Hill because I, as many retirees, was looking for a small university town which had the amenities and the social and educational opportunities that I sought, my husband and I sought for ourselves and our family. We came here because we thought we were coming to a bastion of open and thought and progressive, at least open to alternative ways of thinking and a way that we could enjoy our retirement years. After 5 years here, I am involved very much in the community. I'm also here, I'm president of the Chapel Hill Carborough NAACP, and have taken on that role during my retirement, which is an unpaid job, because of the many discrepancies and racist activities that continue in this community and across our country. And one of which, unfortunately, is this statue that looms over Franklin Street, looms over this, what I thought was enlightened community that I chose to live in. The NAACP's mission is to ensure the political, educational, social, and economic equality of rights of all persons and to eliminate racial hatred and racial discrimination. As such, and on this near 1 year anniversary of Charlottesville, which happens on August 11th, I implore you to think about what message are we sending? What message do we want to send? What are we standing up for? What are we representing in this community? You have the option. You have the leadership. You can decide that you will no longer be constrained by whoever is constraining you. I won't go there. But I do say that as leaders in this community, as leaders of this university system, we should be striving to be that shining light, that example that welcomes all, that educates all, that moves forward in a progressive way toward a new reality that supports and upholds the values that I think we all want in our community and in our institutions. I implore you to remove Silent Sam, to consider, to take ownership, to lead.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Padley, and I'm a graduate student worker in the Department of Geography, where I am pursuing doctoral studies. I am here today to discuss Silent Sam and activism on campus. I want to be clear that when I say Silent Sam, I refer not only to the physical statue at the entrance of UNC Chapel Hill. I'm speaking to the violence and blatant white supremacy that is apparent in the actions and choices made by this Board of Governors. I am addressing how this governing board repeatedly shows contempt for Black and brown students. That Silent Sam remains on a pedestal at the entrance of our campus is but a small example of the disconnect between professed values of a Carolina for all and the actions of this board. Other examples include the exploitation of student athletes, the closing of the Center on Poverty, Work, and Opportunity in 2015, and the decision to prevent the Center for Civil Rights from litigating in 2017. I came to North Carolina in 2016 to pursue doctoral studies in geography. Since moving here, I've been struck by the strong influence that the UNC system has on the state. However, it has become apparent to me that there are some deep contradictions in this place. On one hand, the board's mission statement highlights service to North Carolina and its people, and yet $390,000 have been used to spy on students as part of an effort to protect a cheaply made statue. These actions force me to ask, which North Carolinians does this Board of Governors serve? Governor Smith, in an interview with the conservative Martin Center for Academic Renewal, you said that when you look at what makes the UNC system great, you think it's the faculty and staff. As a graduate worker on this campus, I must respectfully disagree. It's the students. Student visionaries have long defended this institution and made powerful demands to you and their administration. In 1979, Black student movement marched on the South Building, demonstrating against the university's failure to establish an Office of Minority Affairs. In 2015, the Real Silent Sam Coalition, with grace and brilliance, pointed out the deep disconnect between your labels of diversity and multiculturalism and their own experiences as students on this campus. Most recently, Maya Little and others have bravely worked to contextualize this campus space. While you hide behind cries of the law is the law and the excuse that you are a policy body, students and others in the state are noticing the tensions between what they are told and their own experiences. While this board upholds white supremacy, students on campus actively struggle to better their institution. I implore you to follow their lead. Surely in an institution that claims to be so great, it is possible to remove a statue, such as at the following universities: Duke University, the University of Texas at Austin, Bowdoin College. Thank you.
Before I begin, I want to start with a quote from Chancellor Folk regarding UNC's commitment to diversity. We must create a diversity structure that is coordinated and integrated, that celebrates all forms of diversity, which ensures equitable and inclusive educational and social benefits for all. My name is Nico, and I'm a rising senior at UNC studying business at Keenan Flagler. I come from 3 generations of UNC alumni, and I used to love this school before I came here. I can sit here and repeat all of the points you've already heard about Silent Sam, but at this point, it's hardly worth it. You are well aware of what the statue represents and have made a conscious decision to choose money in your pockets over the security of students of color. Chances are you won't even remember my name when you go home today, but hopefully you remember my story. So here it goes. A couple months ago, I was out on Franklin Street getting food with one of my good friends when we came up on another one of my friends in an argument with 2 other students. My other friend was black, the 2 students were white. So we go up and calm the situation down and break everyone apart, and we're beginning to walk away. And I hear one of the 2 white students yell, "Niggers," at me and my friends. I was paralyzed, shock, anger, rage. I mean, imagine being called that by someone who's supposed to be your fellow Tar Heel. To be honest, I still get upset talking about it today. And every time I walk past that spot on Franklin Street, I get angry. And then I walk another half mile and see Silent Sam. proudly representing the Confederacy who started an entire war based on keeping people like me enslaved. So I sit here and look at a mostly white Board of Governors that paid $390,000 to protect the Confederate statue, and to be honest, I'm disgusted. UNC sits on its high horse and pretends to care about its minority students. Statements like the one from Chancellor Folt are nothing but bold-faced lies to the community, trying to protect the false identity of acceptance that UNC tries to portray. Black people are underrepresented in every level of university association: student, faculty, and definitely administration. I can't tell you how many times I've been the only black student in my business school classes. I can't tell you how many times white students look differently at me and my friends. Your decisions have enabled people who, like the guy who called me and my friends the N-word on Franklin Street. And to be honest, us students are tired of it. We're tired of the lies. You can say all the right things and take as many selfies as you want, but that doesn't change the fact that you're paying to protect a symbol of oppression to an already marginalized population of students, faculty, and staff. At this point, I'm convinced that you're not only inconsiderate to the security of minority students, but also blatantly racist. And until your actions back up your press statements, I won't believe any different. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Nancy White, and I am a four-generation Tar Heel. My grandfather graduated in 1926 from Carolina, my father in 1966. I attended here 84 to 88. My son Josh attended school here, and that is my son Nico, who is now a rising senior. I was born on this campus a month before my father graduated. Yes, I bleed Carolina blue. I am also a paying member of this community and live in Chapel Hill. I love UNC, and I am speaking today in an attempt to have it live out its own mission statement as the University of the people, all people. I have listened to many heartfelt and reasonable opinions of the removal of Silent Sam, and am still perplexed as to why it still stands. In UNC's mission statement are the words, "We invest our knowledge and resources to enhance access to learning and to foster the success and prosperity of each rising generation. With light and liberty as its founding principles, the university has charted a bold course of leading change to improve society and to help solve the world's greatest problems." As of today, UNC is not living out its own mission statement. Enhancing access to learning does not include a symbol of white supremacy that intimidates black students and actually hinders their learning. My children, one of whom you just heard from, are biracial. You, Board of Governors, are not enhancing their learning. You are hindering it. My children know what Silent Sam represents. They know that at the dedication speech by Julian Carr that he praised the Confederate Army as the saviors of the Anglo-Saxon race in the South and recalled horsewhipping a Negro wench until her skirt hung in shreds. Both of my sons shudder as they walk by it. That is a tragedy. A true learning environment is one where all students feel comfortable. The mission statement UNC has charted a bold course of leading change to improve society and solve the world's greatest problems? Not. A bold course would be removing a statue that represents one of the world's greatest problems, racism. My heart hurts that this symbol of white supremacy that stands for the fight to own another human being is standing tall in a place of prominence at the university that I love so much. UNC should be a place that should set an example, not foster the oppression and emotional abuse of people of color. Silent Sam is not a university statue. It is a United Daughters of Confederacy statue. Who will it harm to take it from its place of prominence at the end of our campus and put it where it would be welcomed, such as a museum? Who does it harm if it stays? Everyone. Who among you will be the courageous leader to set UNC on the right side of history? Thank you.
Lucy Lewis.
I'm here today because a new semester will begin soon. Yet the Confederate monument known as Silent Sam still stands on the most prominent place on the UNC campus, a statue that is an offensive affront to many of UNC's faculty, students, and staff, a symbol that represents and reinforces white supremacy, a statue that should never have been given space on the UNC campus in the first place and should have been removed long ago, and to call on you, the Board of Governors, to take the necessary actions to remove the statue. I heard that it was recently stated by a member of the Board of Governors that only a handful of students were continuing to protest Silent Sam. Nothing could be further from the truth. I am a Chapel Hill native, the daughter of a UNC professor, the mother of a Carolina grad, and I'm a UNC alum, MPA 90. I retired as assistant director of the Campus Y in 2016, and I'm a member of the Golden Fleece. I'm also a member of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. We have been sitting in at Silent Sam in solidarity with the student protests every Wednesday from 12 to 2 p.m. since last November, taking a break in July while students are gone and plan to resume when they return. We have been there weekly with our signs and handing out leaflets to talk with members of the campus community, interested visitors, and also supporters of white supremacy who have come to taunt and abuse us. Why? This statue may be silent, but its presence speaks loudly. In fact, it shouts. It is indisputable that Silent Sam was erected in 1913 as part of the white power movement of the Jim Crow era. The Daughters of the Confederacy who paid for this statue were overt supporters of white supremacy, and Julian Carr's violently racist remarks of the dedication are well known. Silent Sam's presence is not only a narrative about this past, but reflects and reinforces the ideology of white supremacy today. UNC students have protested Silent Sam for decades. The struggle to remove the statue heightened in 2015 when Green Newsom removed the Confederate flag from the South Carolina state capitol, and again last summer when white nationalists and Nazis marched in Charlottesville and Heather Heyer was murdered. And the response to these nonviolent student protests at Carolina has been cameras, police surveillance, at least one undercover cop, barricades, and most recently the arrest of UNC history graduate student Maya Little, which poured her own blood and red ink on Silent Sam, symbolic of the lives and blood of the African Americans who suffered under slavery, Jim Crow, racist terror lynching, and continue to suffer racial discrimination today. Federal law prohibits any university from creating a racially hostile environment. For this reason alone, the Board of Governors should act to remove a statute that stands in opposition to the inclusive and welcoming environment that UNC's own policy on discrimination purports to uphold. As we all know, federal law trumps state law, including the North Carolina law that gives only the North Carolina Historical Commission the power to remove monuments of remembrance. However, the Board of Governors has failed to even petition the Historical Commission to remove Silent Sam for reasons of public safety. As we approach the one-year anniversary of the murder of Heather Heyer, the August 20th court date for Maya Little, and the beginning of a new school year, I call on the Board of Governors to work for the removal of the statue, to drop charges against Ms. Little, and to stand for the best values of this university and our state. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Smith, Ms. Burris Floyd, Mr. Ramsey. My name is Alyssa Bowen. I'm a PhD candidate and worker at UNC. Most recently, I'm a summer lecturer, but I've also TA'd, run a speaker series, and dedicated various time to different activities for our department. Today, I want to ask, and this seems to be a theme today, what is the intention of this public comment section, and to whom should the Board of Governors be responsible generally? According to the webpage for the public comment section, this is supposed to support open dialogue and facilitate open discussion on campus issues. This would suggest that the Board of Governors wants to at least seem accountable to the members of the UNC community. However, the reality is, by design, that you are very much not accountable to the people this university is supposed to serve. You are elected by legislators in the most gerrymandered state in the country. You create guidelines by which public speakers you gave to us are supposed to abide in this comment section. Meanwhile, a third of you have showed up today. Those of you today, I appreciate no one's playing on their phone, but in January when I spoke, several of you were ignoring us as you played on your phone. You have not responded to the comments of this public comment section since May of 2017. I spoke in January. I haven't received even a private response. Mr. Smith, your op-ed suggests that UNC needs more intellectual diversity among faculty at UNC, and by that you mean more conservatives. But the Board of Governors itself does not represent the diversity, either ideological or socioeconomic or racial, on UNC's campus. Because you're not accountable to the community you purport to observe, UNC is very much not the Carolina for All that your funding campaign proposes it is. Mr. Smith, you've suggested that those seek to remove Silent Sam from public prominence are the vocal minority, and that there is some silent majority, but that just really shows how out of touch the Board of Governors is. I make $15,000 a year, as do all of the graduate students in my department. We do the majority of work for our department, all of the grading. You spent $420,000, and that doesn't count the administrative costs of emailing back and forth, which various FOIA reports have shown were extensive. With that, you could have raised 43 of us out of poverty. We were below the poverty line. We make below poverty wages. And this seems to speak to my second point. Since you're not accountable to the UNC community at large, you should expect that we advocate for ourselves. We're going to advocate for the removal of Silent Sam. We're going to advocate for increased wages for ourselves and other UNC workers. And we're going to advocate for the right to express our opinions without intimidation that we have faced from Derek Kemp and others. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mario Benavente, and I would like to begin by thanking those students and faculty members of UNC and community members outside right now and inside today for the persistent efforts to see the removal of Silent Sam from McCorkle Place. Despite what Chairman Harry Smith would have you believe, there are more than 6 of us. And we'll be unrelenting in our efforts to see this 105-year mistake known as Silent Sam made right. This is my second time speaking at the Board of Governors public comment event, previously in January as a senior university student and now as an alumnus. Having reviewed the board's responses to public comments, I've noticed that none of them addressed the concerns that were brought up previously regarding Silent Sam. So with that in mind, I'd like to speak more directly to the board this time and ask for a very specific response. Governors, issue a statement in support of the removal of Silent Sam from McCorkle Place to the North Carolina General Assembly and the North Carolina Historical Commission. If you require guidance on how to approach the requested statement of condemnation for the white supremacist monument known as Silent Sam, please review the statements issued by 15 UNC departments and schools calling for the removal since last August. They include the Department of English, Department of Art and Art History, Communication, Sociology, History, American Studies, Geography, Romance Studies, African and Diaspora Studies, Department of the Classics, the School of Law, School of Public Health, the School of Education, the School of Social Work, and the School of Information and Library Sciences. You'll notice in their statements that they all uniquely showcase how their academic disciplines recognize that Silent Sam is more than just a block of stone, as your colleague David Powers would have you believe. They collectively rebuke, the collective rebuke by so many academics should dispel Powers' myth that it's just a bunch of spoiled kids taking a stand against this blight on our campus. If this board will not move to issue a statement, please respond with exactly why that is. This board cannot be trusted to lead and shape policy if it cannot respond convincingly to why it prefers to shrug off responsibility to the valid concerns of its students, faculty, and community. 15 members of this Board of Governors reportedly condemned President Spellings and Chancellor Folt for reaching out to Governor Cooper for guidance regarding the increasing public safety concerns around Silent Sam. Keep in mind, the murder of Heather Heyer in Charlottesville, Virginia by radical white supremacists had just been perpetrated. A scenario whose potential still exists as long as Silent Sam remains prominently displayed at the entrance of our university. And do not mistake this reality as hyperbole. Please also review and respond to the collection of death threats issued against UNC graduate student Maya Little, which can be found at silentsam.com/threats of violence. A small sample of the threats will follow. She should be shot on sight. Jerry Hines. Officers should have split her head open. Mo Monty. Let's put a noose on her neck until it snaps. Stephen Triplett. Hang her. Eve Davenport Holder. Hang her and her communist comrades. Steve Quick. I would have walked up there and shot them. Barry Robinson. Those are the names, and there are many more examples that are too heinous to repeat aloud for their extensive use of racial slurs. Those are the same folks who want this board to remain silent on this issue. Stand with the people who've signed on to petitions to remove Silent Sam and to have the charges dropped against anti-racist activist Maya Little. We expect a response very soon, hopefully. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for listening to my comments. My name is Patrick Horn. I was born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm a proud Southerner, and I'm here today because I think it's time for us to do something else with Silent Sam. I won't belabor you with my long history, but I graduated from high school in Charlotte, North Carolina, left the South to attend college at a Yankee school, as it was once called in the movie Shag. And after serving the Air Force for 7 years in Iraq and Afghanistan, came back to UNC to pursue a PhD in Southern literature. I now work at the Center for the Study of the American South, and part of my job is celebrating what makes this region great through a music series and other types of examples of the South's cultural expressions. But I also have 3 daughters that hope to attend UNC one day. And the thought of them walking around the campus and seeing Silent Sam remaining as a symbol of not only white power but male supremacy really bothers me. And when they ask me, what does that statue that everybody's talking about mean, Dad? It's hard for me to explain it in a way that makes me feel proud about our region. So I don't know if people have heard this story. I assume you probably have. But when I was growing up, I was told, when I first visited Chapel Hill, that Silent Sam shoots off his rifle every time a virgin walks by. And that was always a funny story when people would tell it, because that somehow implied something about college women or Southern women or something. And we've spent a lot of time talking about the racial aspects of Silent Sam, but I don't think we've fully grappled with the idea that college women are not of virtue, that they somehow are sluts or whores, or there's some terrible thing about them that we should speak about them in such a way. So I think implicit in the name Silent Sam is something deeply and terribly sexist. And as the father of daughters, I think it's a problem that we need to grapple with. I know that many people think that it's part of our history, and indeed it is. I'm not sure if we should be so proud of that history, but we certainly shouldn't deny it. But I think there are better ways that we can celebrate and acknowledge Southern history on our campus than with a monument that for many, many years has stood not only for white power, but for men first and men only. So as the father of daughters and as a proud North Carolinian, a proud Southerner, I ask you to consider relocating this statue, placing it in historical context, and giving our daughters a campus to walk on when they grow up that they can really be proud of. Thank you.
I know speakers that were not named today, they show up. Anyone did? Thank you very much for attending today. We appreciate your confidence.
Is there anyone that plans to attend the Board of Governors meeting?
Don't want to go over there, you should probably close it out.
I mean, I wouldn't say all day.